This is Rebase.
So what do you do for a living? Oh yeah? How's that? These are questions you hear on a regular basis. And maybe you used to answer with excitement, with passion, with joy, but now you dread even answering the question. Well, I'm here to tell you this is not a show that's going to tell you how to quit your job and start a new company. Maybe that's not for everybody. It is, however, a show that will help you to rediscover your purpose, that passion, that joy, and that fulfillment in what it is you do. Or, if nothing else, you might figure out what it is you should be doing on a daily basis. This is Rebase. We're here to help you transform your career and change your life. Welcome back to Rebase. This is episode 6. And in this episode, Alicia and I sit down with the operations and finance director of a company called Chore Relief. His name is Adam Cisek. In this conversation, we will get into things like the value that mentoring provides on both sides compared to books or even your classic education. We'll talk about how Chore Relief approaches the gig economy from a different angle and how it prepares people for the economy that's coming. I appreciate you tuning in. So without further ado, here's our conversation with Adam Cisek. Hey everybody, welcome back to Rebase. Today, I have a very special guest along with my lovely co-host, Alicia Abate.
Sean, what's going on? I'm so glad to be back.
It's wonderful to have you as always. As always. We are also here with Adam Cisek, who is a business leader in Chicago. He comes from the grassroots of Chicago, the south side of Chicago. Adam, how are you doing today?
Wonderful. Elated to be here. Thank you very much.
Awesome. So Alicia reached out to Adam and brought him on the show because he is that quintessential story of somebody who grew up in a city and saw things that needed to change, saw things that needed to happen, and realized that he could impact his community. He started out as, if I understand correctly, and tell me where I'm wrong, started out doing a paper route, like a lot of people back before, newspapers were no longer really a thing.
It's funny to think that, right?
It is. I mean, now, what does a paper boy do? Does he just do SEO on the internet? I'm not really sure. But But Adam, you took your paper route and you decided to build a network, a conglomerate of paper routes, right?
Yes, I guess in hindsight, that's what I did. Yeah. And back in that day, paper routes were hard to get. Everybody was fighting for them, but if you worked really hard, you can accumulate a few of them. So I actually outsourced a bunch of friends to do all the dirty work and deliver the paper and schlep around in the snow. And I just went and collected the money on Wednesday afternoons. That was the beginning of my entrepreneurial.
You were like the 12-year-old mafia. You basically just gave them protection and.
Hardly. I didn't have the muscle to keep them working.
So, that's, I mentioned that just because it is an insight into how you started, how you had an entrepreneurial spirit early on, but give us a little bit more of your story and, your background, how you came up to where you got to now, which we'll obviously get to soon. How would you tell your story?
Hard question. But that entrepreneurial spirit came obviously from watching my grandparents, Polish immigrants come here and work really hard and in the labor force and starting their own businesses and building them. And then, I went to college, got a corporate gig, did what I was supposed to do, did great. But just found myself trying to find some more fulfillment. I watched my parents work corporate gigs and they didn't always seem to be the happiest with their work. And was trying to find more in my corporate experience. I did great. I did some wonderful things, blah, blah, blah. But at the end of the day, I found myself, trying to have as much impact as I could. And there's that level of bureaucracy a lot of us find that's like, it's a hindrance, right? And I couldn't have it as big of an impact as I wanted to, not because of my ability, but just because of the way things, needed to be, and you can't ruffle feathers or whatever the excuse was at that time. I had some great mentors in that experience, and did accomplish some wonderful things that I'm proud of today, even I can talk about to this day. But nonetheless, that's what drove me to really think about my next pursuit and try and get after a little bit more of an entrepreneurial experience. So I went on into hospitality business. I did that for 18 years, and it took me about 15 years to realize the most rewarding aspect of it was mentoring people, right? So I always just loved I kind of had two different employment pools. And one was aspiring professionals or college kids working, or people who had already graduated from school or was making hospitality their profession. So that was an easy part, trying to give them interpersonal skills, things they might not have attained in school, and tools that they could use once they got out into the workforce that they could rely back on. Things like problem solving, multitasking, interpersonal skills, stuff that they wouldn't get necessarily in school, and really a real life experience of how to apply their education, which is what I found to be most useful for them. So the rewarding part is having these people come back and be like, oh my God, I've gone on to do X, Y, Z, and I didn't realize at the time, but I realize now what I was learning when you were working with me. And I always had that in the back of my mind, like, how could I help these people, progress in their professional careers? What kind of seeds can I plant now that they'll realize later will be a benefit to them? The other side of the employment pool that I was working with was general labor. And being from where I came from and my experiences growing up, a lot of that, I recognized early that they're lacking things, the laborers. They lacked education, they lacked training, they lacked the ability to even know where the resources were for them to get ahead. And just in general, it was the lack of opportunity and the feeling of entrapment. Like no matter how hard they worked, there just wasn't enough ability for me as an owner in that industry to give them what I thought they deserved, or some kind of a larger career path than what they were doing at the time. So there were a lot of hindrances and issues I saw in terms of providing my employees opportunity. Hence where I'm at today. So I got out of the hospitality business and got into a startup here in Chicago that really is rooted in empowering service workers. So currently I serve as operations and finance director for a startup called Chore Relief. It's only a few months old, but it's really rooted in the idea of empowering service workers in the gig economy and preparing them for what's ahead and how their lives are going to change in the future of work. And that's where I'm at today.
It sounds like mentoring's played a huge role in some way, shape, or form, both in terms of your own career and your success and your fulfillment and your happiness at work, and for all the people who you work with. And that's been a theme that's kind of pulled you along. Talk a little bit about I'm just curious to know, like, why is that such sort of the crux, or why is that the sort of the centerpiece of all of this?
Well, mentors always played the most influential role in my life, probably almost everybody else as well. I didn't really learn a lot from books, or I shouldn't say that. I learned a lot from books, but I always found myself learning more from people actually doing things. And I cherish all those memories and find myself relying on those experiences more so than my education. And so I've always found that to be the most fulfilling when I could provide that same experience for somebody else. And now to have this opportunity in front of me, working with just mass amounts of people. And our business model is a little bit different because we put a human touch to mentorship and preparing people in the gig economy. So I get to do that on level. Like just today, I was on the phone with I don't know how many people for an hour and a half, just running through process and procedures and how to think differently, and getting them into the more of an entrepreneurial mindset of things they should be thinking about, not just doing a job and going home, but building a relationship, all the things that they should be working on in their mindset to act more like an entrepreneur.
I love that. And can you speak a little bit too, because you have this experience and you've been, blessed with all these mentors, why you think it's valuable for your employees or other people that you're mentoring to have an entrepreneurial mindset?
Well, I think it's more important now than ever, just because of what is kind of the underlying forces taking shape in the workforce today. So I think in general, we probably all agree that people need to think a little bit differently about their work and have a more of an entrepreneurial mindset in terms of the way they think about it, providing for themselves. I don't think government or necessarily anybody's prepared to deal with the mass amount of people that are going to have to deal with change in their work life. So mentorship is, it's a person. It's not a book. It's not reading an article online. It's somebody, extending a human hand out to you, something you can trust, right? So I can trust someone looking at me in the eye and telling me, this is what you need to do. Follow me in this, and then we'll go through the process together. That's a much less intimidating proposition than read an article online or follow a chat bot. Like that's the options a lot of people have today. And so people I try to mentor, I choose to do it through human contact, which seems to be much more effective.
Yeah, I love what you say about this and preparing people for the economy that's not just now, but the economy that is to come. And as we continue to see this disruption in the impact that technology is having on the workforce and what that's going to mean, and so many more of us. I think we talked about this back in episode 1, Sean. So many more of us, whether we want to or not, are going to be forced into having businesses of our own, be they freelance or something else of that kind. And so more traditional corporate structures will still exist, but how do we empower people to be successful as entrepreneurs and not be afraid of the things that can seem scary about it? Tolerance for risk. Am I going to make the money that I need to? Where's my salary going to come from? All of those sorts of things. So having a real clear path from people who have both created that before through a channel of mentorship seems really, seems like it's squarely in the middle of what really needs to be happening.
Not only the mentorship, but getting them used to technology. So a lot of them, like a lot of the service workers I deal with, they don't know about insurance, how to start an entity, what things they need to do to actually be a business. And they get freaked out when you start talking about you got to pay people and file 1099s or whatever you got to do. It's a daunting task for them, and they're intimidated by it. But when you have somebody leading you through like anything else, and this is only scratching the surface, because like you think about it, and everybody has like a paper route, right? Your gateway to entrepreneurship. People just don't walk into an incubator and start a tech business. Everybody starts somewhere, and they need that stepping stone. So I think like for my service sector and people I'm choosing to help, this is kind of their segue into entrepreneurship. Maybe they'll build a business on our platform and do great things. But if they choose to do more things, then you start to get into more things that maybe Alicia's expertise is in terms of, you start to get into retraining and community building and things of that nature, which are really what I would love to get to a point to do, more in that realm.
Excellent. So tell us a little bit about Chore Relief then. You just mentioned that users of your platform could build an entire business based on that platform. What does the platform do? What are its advantages over any competitors? Just sort of why does it exist? What mission is it trying to serve?
Well, on the employee side, on the employment side, I should say, it's a marketplace for chores like landscaping, cleaning, handiwork, and so it just allows consumers to source these services to local service providers within their community. So the passion and the purpose behind the project really is our platform's different, because one of the main functions you just caught, right? Is that you can build a team. right? You can run around in the rat race of Uber or whatever else you want to discuss, and you can only make as much as your own time will allow you, or consumers are available within your own time. It's kind of difficult to raise a family and do something with that. And what we do differently in terms of providing more opportunity, which is something we identify as a gaping hole, is the ability to hire people, right? So on our platform, you can do these things and you can hire a team, and it takes minimal amount of time, and you can manage them real time from the app, real-time field management from your phone of an entire team of people. And then we take away the administrative nonsense that they don't want to deal with. Your invoicing, payments, chasing money, all the things they don't want to do that sucks up their time, that reduces their productivity. We try to take care of on the back end for them and make it seamless, and just help them schedule and get as much work in the time that they can. So that's one of the biggest things that we do.
So just so I'm sure I heard you correctly, did you just say that you automate out the bureaucracy of running a business and having a staff? Because if so, I don't even have a business and you've already got me sold.
Well, yeah.
Short answer, yes.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. And there's much more. And the mentorship, like I said, I was on an hour and a half today on conference calls, where we kind of onboard service providers across the country and try and get them up and working. It's just it's an amazing experience, to be honest. But that personal mentorship, we get them in a room and it's like, okay, they name every single competitor of ours, and they're like, I've been doing this for 6 months and I've never spoken to a human being. And it's like, yeah, imagine this concept of knowing your people that are working with you are going to send you the payment. It's just, the gig economy and these gig platforms, it's still a service business at the end of the day. You can't ignore it. And you still need human interaction. And the idea of, even you want to talk about driverless cars, there's still going to be humans driving cars for Uber, because the model just doesn't work with all machines. So anyway, we're still going to need to retain human contact and some level of human labor in all these models.
I love that, and I agree with you completely. I've been reading a lot lately about how do brick and mortar businesses compete with online business, and how does Amazon not just completely dominate the world? And the answer really is that human connection, right? If you're running a service business, if you're selling widgets, whatever it is, people will still pay extra for that human connection, and that extra, just the extra effort. So what you're doing is really teaching these people and mentoring them in how to run an excellent service-based business, not just how to cut somebody's lawn, but how to make them feel like they're truly special and how they're truly the only person you're cutting the lawn for, right? Like, you're teaching them the skills of how to connect with other people. Yeah.
And it's not just about that transaction. You got to teach them. It's about, hey, you got to build a relationship. This isn't about this sale. It's about the 52 other weekly cuttings you're going to do, add it up. How much is that worth to you? It's about the human interaction and relationship building. Every other marketplace has got it wrong. They thought about consumer side. They did not think about the labor side, and they're not efficient and on so many levels. You want to talk about anything, price control, time, just inefficiencies all over the place. I think we've got it nailed.
Nice.
Yeah, and I love what you're saying too about this piece around, it's not just a transaction, it's a longer term relationship that people are building. And one of the things that I've been finding in the research around the future of work is this notion of collaboration or community building in creating long-term success for one's either business or career, regardless of sort of what if we're looking at a more traditional corporate structure, or if we're looking at a freelance or building a business of some kind. This notion of collaboration and long-term relationships is really what's going to fuel success over the longer term.
Absolutely. You think about, we don't really know where jobs are going to go. We don't really know yet what
the uncertainty.
Retraining. Yeah, we don't know. And educators and vocational schools and community organizations are all going to need business to work with them to push people in the right direction, to get people retrained for the next opportunity. People are going to have to do more than one job, be trained in more than one industry or more than one trade. if you will. So it's going to take collaboration on many different levels to make the whole model work.
Again, I couldn't agree more. And I think that's why, some of the skills we're teaching in schools aren't necessarily universal skills, right? We're teaching the same subjects we've been teaching in a lot of ways for, decades, but the relationship building, the tactical skills on how to be a better human being, not just a better employee or a better entrepreneur. Like, how do you mentor somebody? How do you figure out how you learn best? How do you communicate better? Basic economic concepts, those sorts of things are the kind of things that I find, at least, I hire a decent amount of like fresh college grads, and it's amazing to me how these skills are not prevalent, like just basic communication skills, grammar, punctuation, how to write a fucking email. Sorry.
Oh, we got explicit again this week. High five for that.
Wait, is there a way to write an email? Can you send me the cliff notes on that?
But just communication in general, right? But yes, email's a good example of somebody who replies to the novel that I write them asking for a list of, requirements and struggles they're dealing with, and I get like 3 words back like, no, it's cool.
I'm actually saying guilty, so I need all the coaching I can get.
But the basic life skills I feel like that people should have coming into a professional job. What are the things that you guys see lacking in young people who are coming up? Because Adam, I'm sure you've seen this in like you said, you did the whole corporate thing. I know I was a young corporate / government employee at one point in time. Alicia, you've been there yourself. I've seen the pictures of you.
Tap dancing on my desk when I quit my first real job. Yes, sir. That was me.
Exactly. So what are the things that you guys see today? Because I see some of it, but I also hire engineers, which they're a special breed in and of themselves. But what do you see of young people coming into the workforce, and what are the things that they could focus on improving?
Alicia, you take this one. I'll go on a rant.
So this morning, actually, I was talking with a former colleague of mine who used to be the chief information officer at Dow Jones. He's now over at Amazon running amazing things with their global enterprise cloud business. And this was kind of at the center. It was one of the crux of the conversation that we were having, is the difference in generations inside the workforce now today, and how one can effectively not only attract talent across various generations with different needs and different motivators, but how one can incentivize people to stay. And
did you learn that secret? Because I'm going to need you to take that offline, because I need that.
Well, this is like the first thing when people ask me this question a lot, and when like this whole millennials thing, it's so confusing, and like, what are we going to do about it and whatever else. As I see it, the first thing is like, look, these guys aren't asking for anything that's particularly surprising, in the sense that they're asking to be treated like normal adult human beings who have competing priorities, who maybe have families. All right, I see your ish over there, but hear me out. Hear me out.
Adult human beings, I don't know. I love
hear me out. But like, okay, so I'm gonna do 27 million hours of work today, but like, I want to go running in the afternoon. Is that such a huge thing to ask? So a lot of sort of the underlying asks of things I don't see as anything different. It's just that a lot of us, I know certainly for myself, there were things like FaceTime at work. I had to sit and be at the office no matter how late, no matter what, and I just had to suck it up and get it done. Rather than like, wait a minute, I want some time for myself outside of it. So I think there's a piece to that. But then secondly, okay, so if we're not incentivized by money, but we're incentivized by things like paid time off or more flexibility or something like that, then companies should be shifting whatever they consider their bonus pool to kind of a menu of options. So this would be my suggestion, right? Like, you could have cash, you could have additional time off, you could have, like whatever the 5 things are that most incentivize people. And then that's how bonuses get paid, right? So that's what I got for you.
Well, Adam, how about you? Like, what do you see?
I think we've got a slightly different.
I actually
I mean, you can rant or you can not rant, but what are the skills? I'll target the question in a little bit. What are the skills that young people who you hire, or even young people that are using your platform, what are the skills that they should prioritize?
I'm first going to touch on, I love working with millennials actually, because they make you question, you know, the older you get, you got all these nonsense rules you've abided by your whole life, and millennials walk in and they're like, why do I want to do that? You know, and it's like, because you're supposed to, that's why. But they really have a different outlook on what's important to them. And it's just like the generational effect of all these people who are not fulfilled building up to this point. But in terms of what I would think they need to prepare better for, definitely a little bit more understanding of hierarchy and respect for where people have come and why they're there, and probably a little bit more elbow grease. They could put a little bit more work ethic. They can employ a little bit more work ethic. But in terms of their creativity and their values, I find them pretty inspirational actually, in bringing some semblance of like personal happiness back to the workplace. So like, yeah, they want to run in the afternoon. Go run. Who cares really, right? Does it really matter? I know for me personally, it's changed a lot of my habits working with younger people back in my hospitality days, rethinking why I do things the way I do and what's really important. So I think there's a lot to learn from that generation.
No, I love that. And for the record, I do love all the millennials I work with. They're wonderful, beautiful.
Oh, I love that caveat. You're like, and by the way, don't quit. I love you.
This is the, no offense, but I'm about to say something offensive. But I do agree with you. Like, they do lead change in the workplace, and because of such an influx of young people into the workplace, it causes you to stop and reflect on what your policies are and what it is that you're trying to do with your company. You mentioned
because we're also old, by the way.
No, we're not. Speak for yourself.
I mean,
I don't know who you're talking about. I'm the only one in here, and
she said in jest.
But you talked about fulfillment, and millennials come into the workplace maybe with unreasonable expectations sometimes, but they are seeking not only a paycheck and not only the benefits and the things that they believe are, just part and parcel of the whole career thing, but they also want to be fulfilled. And you also mentioned when you started in your corporate career, very quickly you realized, okay, I'm making money, but I'm not fulfilled. How did you come to that realization?
No, we talked about this before, Alicia and I. My tactic was always, it took me probably too long to realize it, but
Me too.
Every time I was disappointed, I just worked harder. And eventually I was on the 5:10 train, and I was on the way home at the 8:30 train, and they're all day long. And then I just, at one point, with some personal changes and lost some people in life, and I was just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm not getting anywhere. And it's not because I'm not working hard enough. Like, I'm saving millions and millions of dollars for this company. And, it wasn't like bitter animosity. Like, I wanted to contribute, and it was just, I realized I wasn't going to get anywhere working any harder, so why the hell not do it for myself? That was the mindset change. I was like, all right, I'm not going to be here forever, and I'm not going to be able to make the impact I can, and I'm not going to be recognized for what I'm doing because of my age. So I'm going to go. I'm going to try and scratch the surface on the entrepreneurial front and see what I can do there, what kind of rumblings I can make. And then from there, it was just like, it's not enough impact. I'm not doing enough. I'm not achieving enough. And it was always working so hard and not seeing enough return. And it's not always financial at all. I've never really been driven by the financial piece. I've always been driven by another purpose that was the fulfillment of what I was doing. So it totally was fulfillment and not impacting enough people or having enough impact within the organization relative to the amount of hours I was putting in.
And it sounds like there's also like an evolution in what's fulfilling for you. I mean, when you quit the corporate world, you're looking for one kind of fulfillment, right? So you start your business, you're working hard for yourself, but then you see that once you've tested that out, hold on, this has evolved. There's something else that's going to be fulfilling here. So different, like a lot of folks, that I interact with are like, how do I pick the one right thing? Like, how do I do the one thing now to be the most fulfilled now at this moment? But that's going to change, right? It's that whole fairy godmother game. If I give you everything that you want today, unless God forbid you bite it tomorrow, you as a human being are going to grow, evolve, change. And so even what perfection is today is going to shift. So what fulfillment is today is going to change and evolve. There is no one right thing.
Absolutely. Comes through experience.
No, I love that. Adam, how old would you say you were whenever you were in the corporate world and you realized, oh wait, fulfillment's more important than achievement?
I was 27.
27 is a pretty young age to realize that I want to impact more people. No 27-year-olds I know really say, like, I just want to impact as many people as possible. So that's an amazing...
Don't give me too much credit. I was impacting a small amount of people. I didn't realize that really what my fulfillment came from was service on some level. So I thought I was serving, the inner circle of my life. And that's what really was driving me at the time. Maybe not the best source of fulfillment, but that's where I really, thank you for the compliment. But it was the evolution of me figuring out what actually was fulfilling to me. And I mean, it's pretty clear to me now, it's an element of service on some level. And if I find a way to make a lot of money doing it, that's great.
Generally speaking, the money will follow the service, right? And the impact that you make.
That's what they say. I don't know.
My checking account says,
Not sure.
The jury's still out on that one.
Survey.
Like loading.
Well, Alicia, what have you seen? And, obviously the millennial generation, and I'm going to talk about millennials because it's a fun word to say, it rolls off the tongue. They do come into the workplace looking for fulfillment first. And then they also expect a lot of the other, material perks. But like, what do you see in that generation? What do you see in the workplace right now of, are they valuing fulfillment more than achievement? Are they like seeking fulfillment or identifying it earlier? What's really what are the stakes there? Like what are the priorities?
Well, as I see it, the stakes and the priorities are getting as clear as possible, as quickly as possible about what is fulfilling, what are the things that people value, what's important to them. Because as I see technology and the rate with which technology will be impacting what work is and what it looks like, I firmly believe that our distinct competitive advantages are going to come from what we are actually naturally really good at, doubling down on the skills, the stuff that we do when we're in flow state, all of that kind of stuff. And so as I see people and the difference or distinction in how we think about career and what fulfillment is critically important. So as I hear Adam talking about going to school and then picking that first career and then going up till 27 before you realize that fulfillment was more important, and you similar sort of story, it's because we're taught to think about career in a way that I refer to as building block or Lego career. When we've talked about this again a few times, right? It's that notion of saying, okay, what could I logically do with the stuff that I know and make some money with? And then we just keep like making more of those decisions and more of those decisions, as opposed to saying, what do I want to create? What kind of impact do I want to have in the world? What's most important to me in my fulfillment? And what's the best way to align my skills, resources, talents behind creating something that allows me to do that?
So can I ask a question that seems maybe a little bit conflicting, but for a generation or for a person who wants to have an impact and wants to be fulfilled, to go from the building block approach, where it's like, I'm good at this, so I go to this naturally, to then say, what do I want to do that fulfills me, that makes me happy? When you still want to be making a contribution to the world, how do you balance those two? Like, I want to be fulfilled and happy, but I also want to impact people.
Well, Joseph Campbell would say that by following your own bliss, you do save the world, right? Because vital people who are engaged in what they're doing, who are excited about what they're creating, are impacting others on a massive scale. I mean, the world's crazy right now. There's all kinds of stuff going on. And so what the world sorely needs is people up to the things that are turning the light on in their eyes, right? And so by having more people doing more of that, and what my version of that is going to be different than Adam's, is going to be different than yours. But all three of us humming at, like a million miles an hour at the things that are truly fulfilling for us, not only do we serve as examples, but depending on the size, scale, and scope of what it is that we're creating. And I know that Adam's up to really big stuff, particularly here in the city of Chicago, and then, spreading this out nationally. I know you are as well, Sean, and
I'm up to extra medium stuff.
Extra medium?
Yeah.
Medium.
Yeah.
Like my t-shirts.
T-shirts.
Touche. So, depending on the size, scale, and scope of what it is that you're wanting to create, by you fulfilling your own mission, you have the potential to impact billions. And especially with technology, we are living at the most exciting time in the history of humanity. We have total democratization, or we're moving toward total democratization of information, of access to capital, all of these, of access to opportunities of all different kinds. And so all of us actually have the possibility to, by fulfilling our own visions, dreams, and missions, impact at the scale of billions.
So what guidelines would you guys give to people who want to, feed that need for fulfillment, but also impact people? Like, is there anything that they should look out for? Maybe this is not the rightly worded question, but if you're trying to fulfill a need of your own, I want to impact, this group of people, and I also want to get fulfillment myself. Is there anything or any tips you would give to young people, older people, maybe retirees who are just, I just want to impact as many people as possible, but I also want it to be fulfilling for me?
Okay. I'm particularly interested in the people out working currently, middle-aged people primarily, and maybe older, but people in trades and who haven't had access to the same resources as others. I feel like the millennials will figure it out. They have plenty of time to adapt, and they have youth and education and resources behind them. But the people I'm worried about are really the people who are already established within different service industries, who might be left out of work and not have the opportunity to retrain. I'm really focused on thinking beyond that scope of their work currently and how they evolve into the next cycle of our economy, and figure out how to navigate it and provide them the tools, education, and resources for them to retrain, and help build that ecosystem within cities, to give them that path to find their own fulfillment, right? At the end of the day, you want to be there and have, people behind your work that are fulfilled the same way you are. So that's primarily the demographic I'm focused on. Gotcha.
Alicia? Should I repeat the question?
Yeah. What was that? What was that again? Didn't hear you. So how is it that we find our own fulfillment and help other people? So I think, as I hear you say that the underlying assumption there, it's either one or the other. Mm-hmm. And I don't find that to be the case. I've been doing a lot of work over the last couple of years, after I quit the corporate world, and I got really clear about what my purpose or my vision in life is, right? My to live fully in the freedom of who I am in my soul, igniting the flame of life in the hearts of those around me. Mm-hmm. So by creating my own freedom, right, I can spark in other people sort of that reawakening of what's possible for life, what's exciting for life. And again, yours is going to look different than mine, is going to look different than Adam's. But being, for me, it's through my own exploration in the classes that I teach, it's students seeing me do this, that they then are able to go out into the world and create it for themselves. So I don't think it's an either I'm happy or I'm supporting other people. In fact, I see it as a really beautiful marriage of it all just feeds into itself. Because the more people who I come in contact with who that light comes back on and they start to create amazing things in their life. And I'm like, ooh, I want to go do more of this. And so it just kind of keeps feeding on itself.
I do agree with that completely. I guess there could be people who would.
Ooh, cynics. Do you have cynics and skeptics listening to us, perhaps?
God, I hope so. I hope that there are people who are just like, I'm going to spend 50 minutes of my life just hating on this entire episode. I was thinking more so about people whose goals maybe are more selfishly driven, or I don't know. I'm trying to think of a good example and I don't have one, so I'm going to make one up and it's going to be terrible. But let's say I run a software development shop, client service work, trying to crank out software for as many contracts as I can. And my goal is to make software development delivery for clients as fast as humanly possible. And in doing so, that maybe alienates, the people doing the actual work, because I own the shop and I'm going to just give the client whatever they want. And my goal is to make sure that you can build this stuff as fast as possible. So again, maybe I don't have a good example that is a real world example, but not everybody has an altruistic, goal in life or a mission in life. Alicia, your mission, as you described it, really ties in and like repeatedly mentions the people you want to impact. So if you have a mission that doesn't include the people you want to affect necessarily, like how does that tie in, right? Like with the people that you're going to need to reach and to touch along the way.
So, and I didn't know if you wanted to take that one. So as I look at it, I'm a huge fan of Joseph Campbell, this notion that if each of us individually follows the thing that brings us our bliss, that brings us our happiness, that's fulfilling to us, by extension or by that simple act, we are in fact impacting the world at enormous size and potential. And again, as we saw through Adam's story, his version of fulfillment morphed and changed and evolved over time and through the experiences that he was having. So simply because today one person's form of happiness or bliss comes in one package, it doesn't mean that that's not going to shift and change over time. And even for me, post leaving the corporate world, actually this is a pretty good real world example. My first mission, sure, I wanted to coach people one-on-one, but when I quit the corporate world, I so did not want to be on anybody's team or work with any other human being or see any other people. I was just like, I will work with my clients, and even these people I only want to talk to over the phone. I was done. No Skype. Yeah, no, this is no joke. I would not Skype people. I'd be like, we are doing phone, like no Skype. So, that was what I needed at the time. And so that was very selfishly for me, working with clients one-on-one. And then as sort of my, the pendulum swung the other way post that decision, and I began working with people more and more, and now getting clear about what my mission, vision, and the things that I want to create in the world are, it's swung, over to the scope of billions. But I think, so I do think that these kinds of things evolve over time, depending on what's going on in one's life and the experiences that one has had and continues to have.
And I think that's the answer that I was looking for. It just like popped up.
Oh, do I get a gold star? Come on.
Gold stars, right
there. Thank you. That's so nice.
No, but what you just said about how your mission evolves over time, I think that is the thing that, I myself and other people miss so often, is that it's not just the work that evolves, it's your mission, it's your target, it's what you're shooting for that evolves on a regular basis. So you could start out saying, I want to deliver the best client services experience ever, workers be damned. And then over time you start to realize that, I want to have the best company. I want to have the best culture for building, client services projects. I want, so you could start out with a more self-serving mission and then end up with a more fulfilling mission once you hopefully realize the people that you can impact.
Yeah, I don't know, Adam, what do you see?
I agree. I think the underlying theme is that there's not. Look, in business, you have to put your flag somewhere, right? And say, I believe in this, and go for it. And of course, it's not a straight line, but you need to have certain principles you live by and strive for. But the flag might change once in a while, and when you reach the flag, you might put it somewhere else. So it's not one objective the whole time. Things change.
I love it. Love it. Well, I don't want to cut this short because I do feel like there's probably about 3 more hours worth of discussion that could happen here, but I'm not sure that I can afford that kind of like web hosting for 3 hours worth of content. But I would love to have this conversation again in the very near future. Adam, thank you so much for joining us. If you guys have any closing thoughts on, how young people could better prepare themselves for the workplace, or, just in general, like, how do we improve work for people who are not just quite ready to be entrepreneurs or intrapreneurs or any of those things? What would your tips be to young folks out in the workplace?
Extract as much transferable knowledge as you can from your current experience so that you can adapt or achieve whatever you want to achieve in the future. That's what I would tell them.
Love it.
Yeah, I'd go for curiosity. The more curious one can be, the more of a subject matter student, no matter how much one thinks one knows about anything. Just get really curious and learn as much as possible, because that's what's going to help push you forward and help you even discover what that purpose is, what the excitement is, where the joy comes in, where the fulfillment comes in through work.
Love all of that. I find that if you are curious and you're willing to learn things, even if you don't apply them right now, 6 months from now, you're like, oh shit, I talked to that person and they said to do this in that situation. And oh, dang. I'm glad I listened to my mom. And when she said that, awesome. Well, Alicia, we know how to reach you on social media and how to reach out to you, and that'll be in the show notes for sure. Adam, where should people be looking for you? Maybe at Chore Relief.
You can find me at Chore Relief. That's where that's what I'm working on pretty much, 99% of the time. So, I don't have much more. That's it. That's where you find me.
No Twitter, no anything like that?
I'm a dinosaur. That's my MO on my team.
You heard it here first, at T-Rex on Twitter and Instagram.
I don't do any of it. I get ridiculed every meeting.
Adam, just respond to my email. Look, just type into the email.
Smoke signal.
Yeah, pick up the phone. It's fine.
I don't understand Morse code. Damn it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much, Adam Cisek, for being on with us today. Thank you again, Alicia, for dialing in.
Thanks, Adam.
This is Adam, Alicia, and Sean for Rebase signing off. Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, as always, for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with Adam Cisek from Chore Relief. Adam really got into some of the details about how the corporate life wasn't necessarily serving him, but how he could work for another company and bring value to the people who mentored him, the people he mentors, and so much more. For more episodes of Rebase, check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Play, or stream us on rebase.show via the interwebs. If you've enjoyed the show, do us a favor and leave us a review on iTunes or your podcast platform of choice. Reviews are the lifeblood of podcasts, and they help to put us in front of more people so we can share this knowledge, this wisdom, and these resources with everyone who's looking to transform their work and upgrade their life. Thanks again for listening.